how I was going to do it. I was going to be brave. I was going to show up, never make an excuse, and work hard. That was my path to get from where I was to becoming an Olympian. And that was the logo that I looked at every day, faithfully.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Retire As You Desire podcast. We have one of my favorite people on the planet as a guest today, Dr. Jeff Spencer. Some people call him Uncle Jeff in our circles. And I just have to tell you, he is one of the most miraculous human beings I've ever met in my life. And Jeff, please say a few words about yourself. We're so honored to have you on the show today.
Well, thanks, Bill. I really appreciate every second that we spend together. And I guess, over time, the battle scars that we incur along the way inform us about certain things that allow us to upgrade the quality of our life experience, and in turn to be able to share that with others, which is one of the most important joys that I have, is to help others shortcut their process to be able to manifest the best legacy and life quality possible.
Well, and you do that in the highest level. I mean, I've witnessed it myself, and I'm very grateful for that. And you've been able to work with people like Tiger Woods, Chris Voss. I mean, some of the highest level people from business to life to authors in the world. What's that meant to you as far as being able to work with the highest level collaborators on the planet?
To me, there is no greater honor, should I say, than to be enlisted or consulted to provide insight to someone that plays a very high game, to be able to make that top their kind of perennial normal. Mm-hmm. And every client that I have that I work with, I'm mindfully aware of the fact that I'm being asked to contribute to what their legacy is going to be, knowing that our legacies, there are no redos once we've gotten to the end of it, and that every second does count. There is no higher honor in my mind than to be given that privilege.
And you do that so well. I mean, at what point in your life did you really want to focus in on coaching and working with people and help them reach that highest level that they're capable of? I mean, how did that take form in your life?
I was really lucky. First and foremost, I had three angels in my life, myself personally. The first angel I had was my cycling coach, who I engaged when I was 13, and like fate, and he actually chose me. And this was at a time where it was the last time I saw my father, who my parents were getting divorced, but at 13, I didn't really understand what was really happening. And my dad just kind of disappeared off the face of the planet, so to speak. So there was a kind of an open wound there for some male mentorship that I didn't really get from my father. Not that there was any abuse involved, because there wasn't, but just through sheer absence, there were some things that were really important that I had that I didn't know that I needed to tease and draw things out of me that were inherently there that I couldn't access myself. And my cycling coach was the first of the angels, because what he said to me is, Jeff, you mentioned that you have aspirations to become an Olympic cyclist, which I did at the time. I kind of had the Olympic aspiration when I was 7. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And when I showed some unusual ability on a bicycle at 10, then a couple of years later, I was able to connect with him by sheer coincidence, more than coincidence, actually. But he said, you have to understand here that that level of play, it's a learned skill. It's not something that you're inherently born with or gifted with that guarantees you a path there. And he said, what I want you to do is that you're going to tag along with me. And he was a 3-time Olympian, 5-time national champion, still competing. And he said, I want you to come to my training session so you can be around the level of conversation that I'm having with the people that I'm working with myself to stay at the level of play that I'm at. I want you to get used to that and listening to that and understanding what that means now, not later. And I'll be giving you your training program that you'll be doing that's a lot different than mine, but a lot of this is exposure. And with that being said, he exposed me to the best of the best. That he didn't put himself into me, but he awakened something in me that he drew forth that was there that just needed to be teased out. And that was really important. And 10 years later, I did become an Olympic cyclist. And I owe basically everything to him, and anything that I've accomplished since that time equally, because he taught me the skill of how to win. And I had a second angel in my life that came into it when I was 18. I was a scholarship student at the University of Southern California studying sports science at the time. I still was a couple of years short of becoming an Olympian. I still had aspirations. I was still training and working very hard every day to achieve that. And the angel that I met then, he was 76 years old and I was 18, kind of an unusual pairing, born in the late 1890s. And he was a true Renaissance man. He was a university trained metallurgist, a World War I correspondent, news correspondent. He was a poet, a playwright, a Shakespearean actor. He had and won an Emmy for a film that was created around his creative philosophy. And he also developed a whole new type of art glass sculpture that had never been done before, but he chose me to be his apprentice, which is very unlikely, being an athlete now becoming an artistic apprentice to an art master was very unusual. But he saw something in me that made him choose me. And what was drawn out of me from that experience was a huge creativity side to it. And at our breaks, he would play classical music. He would read the poets to me. He would read the great philosophers of history to me. And he said, I need to fill you up on this. And I'm glad that he did, because I had the ability to absorb that. And I found out that that part of me that maybe didn't have a direct correlation to the Olympics actually made me a much better cyclist. And then the third, also I did go on and have my own art class career where I showed my art in the best galleries in the United States and showed at the best international show with the best art glass artists in the world. Then my third angel was a gentleman that I met through cycling. He was not a cyclist, but he had a very strong interest in cycling because he was French. And when I first met him, he was very short of stature. He was meticulously dressed. He had a beautiful French accent. And I saw something about this guy. He had an amazing dignity about him that I hadn't seen in anybody, and a tranquility of being that I kind of wanted, because I didn't come from that, but it's something that I had a great attraction towards. And he took me under his wing, and he did some things to me that only an angel could do to keep me in the game, should I say. And I found out later that why did he have such dignity? Because he was at a concentration camp in World War II. He was a Jew, exposed to every human cruelty for at least half a decade of unspeakable harm. But yet he didn't have a venomous, vindictive bone in his body, the most loving person I've ever met in my life. And he showed me that, life can be tough, but there's another way of engaging it with dignity that can create a legacy that's memorable to others and live a life of value and quality. So those are the kind of three things that gave me a different way of looking at life that eventually led to me discovering my greatest skill, which is being able to craft the path forward for people to be able to cultivate and grow their greatest talents, to manifest their unique gifts that only they have and they're passed through this dimension. And that's how I found my way into the advisory role, working with the likes of U2 and Tour de France victories and Tiger, so on and so forth. That was the path.
What a life. It's so incredibly amazing.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, it goes back to something that we talk about. It's when, as a human being, when you have a vision. I mean, this happened to you, I think, were you 13 at the time at the shop where you were working and you saw the t-shirt? Yeah. Can you tell us that story, please?
Yeah.
When you have vision or you see you want something, this happens to me. And when I see something, I set that as a goal and then go work towards that. I'm a very visual person. So please tell your story about that. I think everyone needs to hear this.
Well, thanks for reminding me of the story. When I was in my early teens, God, maybe even 10 or 11. I worked in a bike shop. I actually felt like I was more of a mascot than anything because I didn't know what to do with derailleurs and chains and things like that. But this person came in. He had legs that looked like a rhinoceros, and he had this T-shirt that he was wearing, and it said USA Olympic Team on it. And when I saw that, I just wanted that worse than anything. Have you ever had something that you looked at, it called you to it so strongly that you just had to have it? Well, that's the way I felt about it. And at that time, there was no online. The only way you could get it was to become an Olympian. And so that was it. I went home that day and I got a real thick piece of paper and I got my crayons, those 3-decker crayon boxes, and I drew the outline of the T-shirt, put USA Olympic Team in it, and then next to it, I put how I was going to do it. I was going to be brave. I was going to show up, never make an excuse, and work hard. That was my path to get from where I was to becoming an Olympian. And that was the logo that I looked at every day, faithfully. I was under my covers with a flashlight looking at the T-shirt that I drew. Jeff, turn that off. Go to sleep. And I couldn't go to sleep because all I was thinking about was the T-shirt. And, therefore, that was symbolic of an achievement that I was actually called to, I believe, and had a natural inclination to do. But the symbol of that created a possibility that I felt that I was honor bound to pursue, to see what the possibilities of manifesting that were. But again, it all started with the vision. And without that target, there would have been perhaps a willing soul, but there was no North Star to point itself to. Therefore, it would have not taken action. So the visual side to this can never be underestimated. And that's why visions are extraordinarily important to have as a part of any aspiration.
Brilliantly said. And your North Star, that gave you the navigation process to go out and accomplish this goal.